Welcome to the new lecture, lecture 16. Hope you already viewed the previous lectures and ready to our journey today together. Today we're going to complete what we've started in the previous lecture, talking about the relation between citizenship and the structure of the government and the separation between power. Nowadays, it is very important to see things from inside the community, not in an abstract way or in a philosophical way, as previously the thoughts did. It is not about what's supposed to be or what is the best practice. It is to see how things is going on the ground, the real implementation, the real attitudes and behaviors on the ground inside the governments themselves. So that's why we're dealing with these details. As you remember, we talked about that we're going to move from the theoretical level to the practical level in the beginning of the lectures, and this is the second level where we deal with the details, the practical implementation of the thoughts, notions, perspectives of political science. Again, let's talk about the citizen responsibilities. Citizenship is a democracy. Life is a very important perspective of the democratic life. Citizenship in any democracy requires participation, civility, patience, rights, as well as responsibilities. Political scientists like Benjamin Barber has noted that democracy is often understood as the role of the majority, and rights are understood more and more as the private possessions of individuals. But this is to misunderstand both rights and democracy. For democracy to succeed, citizens must be active, not passive, because they know that the success or failure of the government is their responsibility and no one else. As certainly true that individuals exercise basic rights such as freedom of speech, assembly, religion, etc., the fundamental rights we talked about, but in another sense, rights like individuals don't function in isolation. Rights are exercised within the framework of a community, a society, which is why rights and responsibilities are so closely connected. So the relation about how or the space between responsibilities or rights reflects the face of the community, reflects the attitude of the government itself towards building this community, towards building a culture of awareness. People should be aware that their participation is the only solution to protect democracy. In another sense, democratic governments or any democratic government which is elected by and accountable to its citizens protects individual rights. So the citizens in a democracy or a democratic community can undertake their civic obligations and responsibilities, thereby strengthening the community as a whole. So it is again about building the relation between the awareness, responsibilities, and duties in a way or another. At a minimum, citizens should educate themselves about the critical issue confronting their community, their society, the threats, the elements that shape this community, the problems this community is facing. If only so they can vote in an intelligent way, they will be very capable to select the best, to present them, and to lead this community to a real good future. Some obligations, such as serving on juries in civil or criminal trial, or in the military, for example, may be required by law, but most are voluntary. Essence of democratic action is the peaceful, active, freely chosen participation of its citizens in the public life of their community and nations. It is how people have their own inner willing to participate. They are motivated by their own awareness to participate, and this awareness is the only guarantee that the coming government will be very aware of its role and function. And another aspect, according to certain scholars like Diane Revitich, for example, democracy is a process, a way of living and working together. It is an evolution, not a static. It requires cooperation, compromising, and tolerance among all citizens, and a huge awareness towards their responsibilities, role, and the role and the function of the government. Making it work, it is hard, not easy. Freedom means responsibility, not freedom from responsibility. Fulfilling the responsibility can involve active engagement in organizations or the pursuit of specific community goals. Above all, fulfillment in a democracy involves a certain attitude, a willingness to believe that people who are different from you have similar rights, to see how you can participate in building your community, and in the same way that you are the core guard for the future of this community. Citizens in a democracy join political parties and campaign, for example, for the candidates of their choices. They accept the fact that their party may not always be in power. So this is again the concept of awareness. How people are aware that they might select certain party and this party will not win the election, for example. But this doesn't mean they do quit their responsibilities or they are out of the political game. Let's talk about certain elements according to this concept. Number one, people, citizens are free to run for office or serve as appointed public officials for a time. Number two, they utilize a free press to speak out on local or national or regional issues. Number three, they join labor unions, community groups, business associations, any assemblies they feel can represent them, present their interests, willing, and thoughts. Number four, they join private voluntary organizations that there for their communities, or at least that share their interests, whether devoted to religion, ethnic, culture, academic, study, sport, art, literature, neighborhood improvement, economic, international studies, cultural changes, or other different activities that enhance their identity in the community. Number five, all these groups, no matter how close to or remote from government, contribute to the richness and health of their democracy. So again, um, the relation between the awareness, the mentality, the mindset, and how this mindset will be translated into actions, attitudes towards the community is the key to build democracy. How you can see your country, build your country through participation, through whether direct political participation, through joining political parties, or through semi-political participation, through, for example, joining lobbies, etc., or through social participation, through joining certain groups that has nothing to do with political parties, but again, participating in shaping the community aspects, whether cultural, economic, or etc., is the key to build a health democracy, a balance between the wing of the government and the wing of people. uh, let's talk, if all the previous was talking about the process of participation, so the climax, the top of this attitude definitely will be elections. So if we're going to talk about elections, it would be very important to talk about it in two perspectives. Perspective number one, on the theoretical level, how it was supposed to be. Then we're going to reflect certain exercises and issues relevant to real life. Democratic elections, it's supposed to be free, fair process which is implemented in a regular time. This process is essential in ensuring the consent of the governed, which is the bedrock of democratic politics. Elections serve as the principal mechanism for translating that consent into governmental authority. It is the tool to give the privilege for some people to take decisions on behalf of others. Okay, let's talk more and more about elements of democratic elections. Many scholars were talking about how we should establish elections, how elections are supposed to be implemented, and in which sense, what are the constitution contribution, who will control what. But in general, we have uh, certain scholars who we love to have their perspective here, like Jan Krepetchik. He is a scholar and the former of the U.S. representative to the United Nations, offered a certain definition for political, or what we call democratic elections. He said that democratic elections are not merely symbolic, they are competitive, periodic, inclusive, definitive. Elections in which the chief decision makers in a government are selected by citizens who enjoy broad freedom to criticize government, to publish their criticism, and to present alternatives. Democratic elections are competitive. Opposition parties and candidates must enjoy the freedom of speech, assembly, and movement necessarily to voice their criticisms of the government openly and to bring alternative policies and candidates to the voters. Simply permitting the opposition access to the ballot is not enough. The party in power may enjoy the advantage of having higher authority, but the rules in the conduct of the election contests must be fair. On the other hand, freedom of assembly for opposition parties doesn't imply more mobilizing role, or they should not take it away of their social responsibilities to protect the community. They should understand that even if they are against the government, or if they having another perspective, this will never give them the privilege to use violence or to attack others in the name of opposition. Another important point we need to emphasize on, because actually this is the thing that we really suffer in most of the Arabic communities, that people who are elected, they are employees. They are elected for certain period of time. Democratic elections are periodic. It is only for short period of time, or at least determined for a very accurate, precise time. It is not infinitive. Democracies don't elect dictators or presidents forever. They should understand They are being elected for a certain period of time, and once this time is over, they should surrender. The authority should be rotated in a very democratic, mature way. Elected officials are accountable to the people, and they must return to the voters at prescribed intervals to seek their mandate to continue in office and face the risk of being voted out of office. Democratic elections are inclusive. The definition of citizen and voter must be large enough to include the adult population. Everyone inside the community is included. No one should be excluded from this political process. A government chosen by a small exclusive group is not a democracy. No matter how democratic its internal working may appear, it's still not democratic, unofficial if they are being elected by a very small elite. One of the great dramas of democracy throughout history has been the struggle of excluded groups, whether racial, ethnic, religious minorities, or even women actually, to be full citizens or to win the full citizenship, and with it the right to vote, hold office, and participate fully in the community, whether politically, socially, or economically. So again, it is important to say who is considered as a citizen, to be able to say whether this political participation is a realistic one or not. Also, democratic elections are definitive. They determine the leadership of the government for a set period of time. Popularly elected representatives hold the reins of power. They are not simply figureheads or symbolic leaders. Democracies thrive on openness and accountability, with one very important exception: the act of voting itself. To minimize the opportunity of intimidation, voters in a democracy must be permitted to cast their ballots in secret. At the same time, the protection of the ballot and tallying of the vote totals must be conducted as openly as possible, so that all citizens are convinced and confident that the results are accurate and the government does indeed rest upon the consent. Another important element in our discussion would be the loyal opposition. You were talking about political participation, we talk about elections. It is time to talk about loyal opposition. One of the most difficult concepts of some to accept, especially in nation where the transition of power has historically taken place at the point of a gun or military or violent, is that of the loyal opposition. This idea is vital one, however. It means, in essence, that all sides in a democracy share a common commitment to its basic values. Political competitors don't necessarily have to like each other, but they must tolerate one another and acknowledge that each has a legitimate and important role to play. Moreover, the ground rules of the community or the society must encourage tolerance and civility in public debate. It is not important if you are with the party who is in the government or in the party who is in the opposition. It is the most important point to have the mindset of tolerance, of awareness that drive everyone inside the government to put the nation interest above everything else. When the election is over, the losers accept the judgment of the voters. If the incumbent party lose, it turns over powerful, peaceful track. No matter who wins, both sides agree to cooperate in solving the common problems of the community. No matter if you are again with the winner or with those who lose, you should understand that you should be very willing, opening to cooperate with others to serve the community, to serve your country, to help your country to go over their problems and obstacles. The opposition continues to participate in public life with the knowledge that its role is essential in any democracy. It is loyal not to the specific policies of the government, but to the fundamental legitimacy of the state and to the democratic process itself. Democratic elections, after all, are not a fight for survival, but a competition to serve. This statement is a very important idea. If political parties see the election, see the political participation as a competition to serve, they will be very flexible, cooperative, understanding, and uh, um, flexible and tolerant. If they see the election as a war or as a fight, definitely the reality will go for the party, not for the community, where they will destroy the community. They will not help in building their communities, but in the contrast, they will do the best to destroy the work of the winner, for example, with all the possible tools. The thing will definitely reflect on a bad, negative way on the community in general. Let's talk now about how to administrate, how to control elections. The way public officials on a democratic community or democratic process are elected can be enormously. On the national level, for example, legislatures can be chosen by districts that each elect a single representative, also known as the winner-take-all system. Alternatively, under a system of proportional representation, each political party is represented in the legislative authority or body according to its percentage of total vote nominated nationwide. So we do have two types, two patterns. Either the winner will take everything, will take all the privilege and the power, or it will be a percentage based on the voting or the voters numbers. Another important things we need to talk about is the local elections can mirror these national models as the best practice actually. Whatever the exact system, election processes must be seen as a fair, open, transparent process so that the election results are recognized as a legitimate fact. People should trust that this process was implemented in a very transparent, legitimate, objective way, to accept it and to give the legitimacy for the coming government or the coming officer in a way or another. Public officials must ensure wide freedom to register as a voter or run for office, administrate an impartial system for guaranteeing a secret ballot along with open public vote counting, prevent voter fraud, and, if necessary, institute procedures for recounts and resolve any election problems or complaints should happen. So we have two elements talking about the administration. Number one, the system of the election itself, we have two systems. Either the party who will win the election will take everything, will lead the government, or we're gonna have a percentage for the weight of the voting. The other thing, people will vote in a secret way to protect their privacy, but the counting and the announcement should be on public. So, in general, let's agree on a certain definition for elections. What is an election? An election is a method of filling an office or post through choices made by a distinguished body, designated body of people called electorate. It is a mechanism through which the holding of power is legitimized. Elections are a form of representative democracy. They are held regularly in, for example, UK, United States of America, legally required to give the legitimacy for the government and give them the power to say they are capable to take decisions on behalf of the community. Let's agree upon certain vocabulary you need to know whenever you talk about um, uh, elections. Number one, French say there is the legal power to vote, popular vote. Whoever has the biggest share of the vote in an election is said to be the popular. Wasted vote, voting against the incumbent in a safe seat with a large majority, typically called a wasted vote. Tactical voting, voting for a candidate who is not your first choice on the hope they will unseat an incumbent. Famous with lap lap. Referendum, a single issue vote in which the highest voted response is enacted into law. Like we need to ask people whether they are with SDAO agreement, for example. So we have a referendum asking for their opinion, etc., etc. Constituency is a geographical area in which voters vote for a candidate that represents that area uh, on a political level. So it is a geographic criteria for the election. Marginal constituency, a geographic area in which the gap between the incumbent and the challenger at election was close or traditionally changed its banking. Floating voter, an individual who is not politically allegiant to a major party and will vote based on their choices on election day, for example. Boundary Commission, independent body which reviews the size of constitutions every 8 or 12 years. The constituency should contain at least 70,000 people. If they fall well below that, boundaries are relevant to current population. Uh, these vocabulary are linked more to the United Kingdom system because they were the most clear one on this issue. Uh, we have like other vocabulary like recruitment, legitimacy, accountability, participation, education, influence, choose, mandate theory. All of these are very essential vocabulary you need to know, read, and understand before we talk about understanding for election in a very strong way. Thank you so much for joining me in this lecture and lesson. We reached to the end of our lecture today. I just want you to remember that whenever we talk about election or the political process, there is four core aspects. The relation between government and citizens, the responsibility versus rights, the election process, and the relation between government and opposition. It is very important to see things in the wide perspective to be able to see how democracies are developed. Thank you so much. Please be safe and see you soon.